Have you ever wondered why Phaenon's boobs look suspiciously like those of Nanook? Where is the beauty? And is Akivali the fool or Aha the fool? With Genshin lore having been long established that it's partially based on the tarot cards by Hoyo, I think it's really undeniable that the Aeons and the Trailblazer's journey in Honkai Star Rail are also based on the Fool's journey in the Major Arcana, considering how Black Swan point blank showed us that the Aeons are literally cards in the deck. Now that the second anniversary of Honkai Star Rail is drawing close and we have more information about the Aeons, let's take a second look at the Fables Among the Stars Part 1 and draw a card to see which Aeon is which card. In the hidden text in Fables, everyone Aeon has a fluff text describing either them or their followers. For Nanook, it reads, "At the universe's core lies a flame. It burns ever so intensely, till entire galaxies are incinerated, for the sole purpose of embracing a splendid destruction. At the end of all realities." To that, Black Swan told us. Yet that light began to burn, piercing through the clouds as a golden death. Towers crumbled, and the people fled, for the sun was soon to set and meet with vicious destruction. Right off the bat, when we look at Nanook's symbol, we can see that they're obviously the tower in the Major Arcana. The tower means misery, distress, indigence, adversity, calamity, disgrace, deception, ruin, in other words, destruction. The narration Black Swan gave us about towers crumbled and the people fled is also very on point. However, what does the end of all realities mean here? Well, it's actually self-destruction and the heat death of the universe. According to the databank, Nanook's domain is entropy. In real life, according to the second law of thermodynamics, entropy of isolated systems left to spontaneous evolution always tends toward a state of thermodynamic equilibrium, where the entropy is highest. Effectively, this means that the arrow of time always points toward the extremity, where entropy is the highest. However, in the 19th century, Lord Kevin posited that as the universe expands and particles progressively grows further apart from each other, there would be a point where the particles would be too far apart to interact anymore, leading to a state where entropy returns to zero. This is called the heat death of the universe theory, which, if you're a Madoka fan, you're probably very familiar with. This specific theory is what Nanook represents if you have played the home decor event and triggered the bad end when you choose to sleep forever and Nanook wins. Of course, this theory isn't exactly popular anymore because people no longer think that the universe is a closed system, but in the Honkai Star Rail setting, Nanook represents the heat death theory itself, a permanent of everything, in competition with the cyclical universe theory, which is the equivalence of Penrose's CCC in real life, represented by finality. I'll make a video explaining the layman physics in Honkai Star Rail world setting later after 3.0 hits, but regardless, it can be said that Nanook wants to destroy everything, including themselves. Or, in other words, at the universe's core lies a flame. It burns ever so intensely, till entire galaxies are incinerated, for the sole purpose of embracing a splendid destruction. At the end of all realities. But who is Nanook, and why do they want to destroy everything, including themselves? We don't have the full story yet, but I think with the new drip about Phaenon, I believe that it's reasonable to say that Phaenon is connected to Nanook in some way, or possibly, he is a memory or a parallel of Nanook's past. I personally think he's a shadow of the Ankle Guy in Swarm. For a quick recap of Ankle Guy's history, he was the king of the Elethian Empire in the Lepismat system during Swarm. His name isn't actually Ankle Guy, but his defining feature is that he has twisted ankles, so I got into the habit of calling him Ankle Guy. Anyway, he was initially a wanderer who arrived at the Lepismat system due to a prophecy of finality. But unknown to him, the prophecy was tampered with by Aha, so it was a trap all along. After he arrived at Lepismat system, he established an empire called Alothia, whose name originated from Yellow and Thea. Yellow is Elohim, God, El, and in this case specifically, it's likely Aina. Thea is Greek for God, so you can probably guess that Alothia is vaguely based on Greek and Carthage. You can see where this is going for Alothia. Anyway, Alothia was an empire with many city-states in the Lepismat system, which included the important sites in the Swarm events such as Mandala Island, which was the ground zero of swarm epidemic Eladicna, where we met Ankle Guy in Simulated Universe, and likely Zeus Tedera as well, which was in the Sand King story alongside Eladicna and Mandala. Our Ankle Guy here was their king and wore a white crown. If you came here from Lality's Swarm video, you probably knew of him as the Crown Guy. Long story short, the people with multicolored wings on Mandala one day suddenly turned into bugs with multicolored blood. This was the start of the swarm epidemic, which spread across the Elathian Empire. At the end, literally everyone except the Ankle Guy died. In despair, the Ankle Guy built multiple sand towers, only to watch them collapse again and again. Get it, towers? After many failed attempts at building his sand towers and sand civilization, the Ankle Guy fell into nihility and became a self-annihilator, which is an existence similar to the Synthurstos mentioned by Acheron in the Penacony main quest. However, it's not the end of his story. He happened to run into a morning actor who stole his memory. The morning actor is actually a worm and possibly Sparkle, a masked fool, in disguise, working behind the scene under Ahas's order. Due to the loss of his memory, the Ankle Guy lost his self-annihilation drive. One half became a nameless, while the other half wandered around on Eladicna as a Synthurstu, forgetting that he was a self-annihilator. Time passed. Under Ahas's urging, the masked fool stole the gondola of the morning actor and created a chain of events to ship the nameless on board to the Eladicna. One of the masked fools, who is probably Sparkle, pretended to be a morning actor and gave a nameless on the gondola a memory bubble containing the memory of the Ankle Guy and blew up the gondola. Obviously, this prompted the Ankle Guy to remember his past failure and his identity as a self-annihilator. Subsequently, he arrived at Eladicna and met his shadow self, but like matter colliding with antimatter outside the event horizon of a black hole, they both disappeared. It was then that it was revealed to us that the Ankle Guy's disappearance was due to the action of the equilibrium. I'm mostly focusing on Ankle Guy here, but if you want a more detailed recap of Swarm, I would recommend you to check out Lality's video on the subject. Anyway, so where did Ankle Guy go? My theory is that he was reborn as Nanook. I think it's quite evident that the Ankle Guy as a nameless is quite similar to that of Nanook, and it is no coincidence that they both have white hair, tan skin, and bandage on their hands. Furthermore, if you look closely at Nanook's splash art, they actually also have no ankle, and the Ankle Guy's ankle is literally his most defining feature, which is mentioned in almost all of his appearance in Swarm. Literally, you can go check the wiki and search by ankle, you'll see virtually his entire story with that keyword. In addition, I think it's no coincidence that in the beta test quest for Simulated Universe, we were directly a memory preserved by Fuli, one of someone being surprised that they were born again on Adlavan as a dark-skinned baby with golden scar. Said baby then grew up to wander the wasteland in a robe, and a similar scene was actually shown to us in the Golden Amphoreus trailer, while the lyrics at Phaenon's face is literally born with shackles in the Chinese version of the song. Incidentally, during the live stream, the devs actually teased that Amphoreus produced 3 beings on the same scale as emanators, or possibly manifestations of the Aeons themselves. Connecting all the clues together, we can have a hypothesis here. Phaenon is the memory of the Ankle Guy, who ended up becoming Nanook in the real timeline. That said, I did say the real timeline for a reason. The Amphoreus we are visiting is only a blob of memory floating in space, a record, a story of the real Amphoreus. The real Amphoreus was long, long gone, as spoiled by the Nameless Faces song itself. We will only be experiencing a story, literally, an alternate version of the real thing, a simulation. Thus, the Phaenon we will be interacting with is also not the real one that became Nanook, but is merely the memory of one. Effectively, it is very much an Elysian realm situation for Kevin in Honkai 3. But what is Nanook's goal? Well, for one, the Fables video directly told us that, at the universe's core lies a flame. It burns ever so intensely, till entire galaxies are incinerated, for the sole purpose of embracing a splendid destruction, at the end of all realities. So in short, he wants to kill the sun and make the heat-death theory come true, thereby subduing the samsara enforced by finality. For this, it is interesting that after Swarm, because Aena used up their power as the suns to kill Tazi and fell themselves, Equilibrium has been going ascending people into Aeons as replacement sun for Aena in the worlds that used to follow Aena. Yaoshir was one such case, as was Zype, and in this case, Nanook themselves as well, as you can see in his splash art with the black sun bleeding golden blood of the Equilibrium. So Nanook's ultimate goal, in a sense, still centers around self-annihilation. In any case, the gist of my guess right now is that Phanon is the memory of Ankle Guy, who eventually was reborn on Adlavan and became the actual Nanook after meeting his shadow self on the apocalyptic Eladigna. But at the end, whether Nanook was Ankle Guy or not, and whether Phanon is the memory of the Ankle Guy or not, it's still pretty obvious that Nanook is the tower in the deck. Want to see more of Ankle Guy lore? Want to know more about the Fool's journey among the Aeons? Please like and subscribe, so I will finally stop procrastinating and make the rest of the videos in this series and finally make the news video.